If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Disc Connected. I'm here with Joe Yanick, who is one of the co-founders of Yellow Veil Pictures. Joe, thanks for being able to catch up with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's been a long time coming. Yellow Veil is one of the, really at this point, it feels like one of the seasoned kind of first OCN partner labels, and I've really wanted to talk with you guys for a long time. How's the last couple of years been overall?
It's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think we were part of the second wave. I think like early on was like Jonathan with Fun City. Then I think we came when they announced new labels after that. We were part of that. So yeah, we've been basically from the beginning. It's cool. It's like an ever growing, ever time consuming process. It's interesting going for, I mean, I come from, I'm a very big collector myself. So getting a peek behind the curtain is nice for many reasons, especially for realizing that like even the smallest release puts in like a ton of work. So actually, like, when people complain and there's like not like stacks and stacks of extras, it's like right. Hell. It does give you a little bit of like, oh, okay.
You guys burst onto the scene with OCN with Knocking. This was the first title, and I was really interested from the beginning. But I really want to shout out this one. Blood on Her Name was the first one that made me go, you know what? I think I'm going to be attached to this label for a long time because that movie hits hard.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, Blood on Her Name is an interesting one because we originally because we started as a sales company, which I know. For many people listening, probably like, what the hell is a sales company? Or like maybe can kind of assume what it is. I mean, that was myself and until like just a little bit before I started working in sales too. But so Blood on Her Name we sold, and then we kind of, we're always in touch with the filmmakers, and when we have the label coming around and we can do something like that, we kind of reached out to a few of the companies that we sold movies to that didn't do Blu-rays. That we thought, would be interesting ones to explore on. So that was great. It was a nice chance to like work on a movie again and, get to work with filmmakers. And yeah, I love it. It's got that like, just like kind of gothic noir, aspect to it without being also like overwhelmingly like, indebted to neo-noir either. So
yeah.
And the performances are just really incredible.
That's the big thing with a film like that. They could have kind of phoned in a couple of the roles, and they really went for everybody. They nailed it across the board. Some of the settings could have been kind of cheap, like backwoods type stuff, and it just looks great. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, there's a super talented team. That's a super great director.
With Yellow Veil, one of the first things I really kind of want to lay out here is the catalog at this point, especially the physical catalog, is very diverse. There is stuff from all over the world, stuff from many decades at this point. There's a lot of different genres. What makes a Yellow Veil movie?
I think weird maybe is like maybe my favorite keyword, even though that might be not some of the filmmakers' favorite words, but always something I think like touching genre, but also maybe touching art house. I've always described the company as a bit of a spectrum between art house and genre.
Yeah.
And my love would always be to like push further and further into like just pure art house when possible. Obviously the things that are like pure genre sell best. So
of course
it's a balance. And I don't think anything we've done is like pure genre, but the closer you get to that sort of like horror or definable sort of genre, I think it's just easier. It's easier to take chances, but it's been really cool. I think being as part of like OCN, I think people have taken some chances on some of our titles that are like a little bit harder to classify. And I don't know, I guess people like yourself really like them. So but yeah, I don't think there's like one thing that like really like points it out. But you know, it's kind of like, you know, when you see it.
Well, speaking of difficult to classify, fairly early in 2023, Yellow Veil came out of nowhere with a trilogy of films. Let's discuss these, because these are like nothing else in the physical catalog, at least. They came out of left field. They are some titles that people were looking for a while, the ones that knew about them. First off, like, how'd they do for you, and how do you feel like the trilogy fits in with the Yellow Veil stuff?
They did wonderfully, actually. Like some of our best sellers, which is really nice.
Wow.
Honestly, so it's like we were going after another title at the time, and we were speaking with the rights holders, and that's kind of how we originally got on it. So it wasn't like, I'll be honest, like it wasn't like this, like we must put this one out, but we were all big fans of the film. And I think perfectly, like, it situates in our sort of catalog. I think all of these films are very much playing with very like recognizable forms, but really skewing them. And I think he's just like an absolute outsider of a filmmaker, like working within Poland at the time, and like what his filmmaking represents is like, you know, what we're looking for. So we were trying to do it all. We try to do most things, as you can probably tell, like all rights. So we're handling not only just Blu-ray, but we're doing additional rights. The occasional titles, things like The Runner or the Wojciech Haas films, we're just doing Blu-ray on. So those, I think we're trying to find things in a very cluttered sort of like ecosystem where like everything's kind of coming out. I think we're still looking for ways of defining like why, you know, like films that should be out. And I think these, for instance, have just been really available and not released for many years. I mean, it wasn't, I don't exactly know why. I mean, perhaps we just hit that sweet spot when the rights holder was absolutely ready to work. Right. It was a rather easy process for us, but I think like in terms of the films, it just really like sort of like it allowed us to push into rep a little bit more, but also find something that I think really felt unique to us, and didn't feel like we were necessarily stepping on other labels' toes. Although there's a number of labels I can think of like almost immediately that also could have released these films very wonderfully, and I'm sure would have if they didn't have their own sort of like catalog of like tons of titles they have coming out. So it was great. I feel like it's a big honor, and it came also a bit through I'm quite good friends with Daniel Bird, and obviously Daniel has sort of been linked to the films for a while as well. So
I always kind of rejoice a little bit on the inside when a label like Yellow Veil can get titles like these, because you could see them. I mean, genuinely, I mean this earnestly for people that have not seen these. These could have been home on Criterion. They could have been at home on whatever this Vinegar Syndrome Labs line. They haven't done too many on there, but it could have fit in there. There's a handful of these other very art house, like Oscilloscope probably would have done very well with these. But when a label like Yellow Veil gets it, and somebody can see how you can make something shine, I love that it brings a little bit of attention to something that was probably a little more underground for a lot of people, because it's easy to get sort of lost in the OCN first of the month hustle when you got some of these titles going on. But with this, like, this is not a typical thing that somebody would find at Yellow Veil, so it's just nice to see.
Yeah, it's cool. And like is like weird and like unknown as the movies can be for some people, there's also, as you know, like there's this like kind of like huge cult following for the film. So like people were very, very excited. And it was really nice because it was a chance to work with Alexander Waloszewski again, who was a designer we've worked with a lot, and he's an up and coming Polish designer, and we're just like over the moon about him. Like we've used him I think 5 or 6 times now. And it felt really fitting, especially with us being a sort of young new company working on something older, to have like sort of like a newer face of Polish art, who also, I think his art really does look back to a lot of the original designs. And frankly, we just weren't able to license the original artwork either, so that's why it's not included. I mean, I'm sure that's a question people have. The original art is amazing. Right. All those Polish designs were amazing, and we looked into it. It's just like it was like kind of a dead stop, and for us at the time, so we just we went with just commissioning new art and trying to find a new way in. And I'm so happy with Alice's work. I think it's truly wonderful.
The three of them together are just top notch. Some of my favorites from the year for sure. We'll come back to some of the titles. You mentioned the beginning of Yellow Veil as a sales company. What led to the three people starting a sales company together? How was the genesis of those days?
It was like festivals mostly. I was working for another sales company at the time, but I was working very much with a lot of film festivals. Justin runs the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival in New York, so he was a festival I was always kind of working with and talking to. And then Oog used to be up in upstate at Ithaca Fantastic. So we all knew each other, film festivals. We all kind of saw the same movies, and like, at a certain point, it was a little happenstance because I turned to Justin and I kind of like interested in maybe starting a company with him and like seeing what he was doing, but I kind of just asked him like, hey, do you know any other genre company in the United States that only does, or any sales company in the United States that only really focuses on genre? And there are like a number of European ones, and then there's like Canadian ones, but there really wasn't like an American one. So we're like, maybe there was, and we weren't thinking of it, and there's some, there's arguments to be made, but at the moment we're like, we'd maybe be the first one, maybe that would be something to talk about that's like as an entry point. And then somewhere down the line, very similarly, like Oog, also we sort of like lobbed a question to him. It turned into him joining the company, and once that happened, everything clicked. Actually, really quickly after we saw Lose for the first time, and it just like blew our minds. And we knew it was the film that had to launch our company. We weren't really ready to do that, but we figured it out. We had like a time frame that made sense. The movie had just premiered, but it was going to play Fantasia in like 6 months almost. So that gave us like that much window to like publicly figure out everything and launch the company. And that's what we did. Right. So yeah, it was mostly just out of film festivals and seeing movies that played film festivals that really we didn't think got the traditional sales treatment. Like they maybe just like got a few sales here. So especially like the genre stuff and international, non-English language, things like this, right, that we thought like that could be like where our strength would lie, because we know these movies and we really like them.
Film festivals, obviously a huge important part to what you guys do and what you were doing before. If I could, I'd love to go down the road a little bit on these, because there's been a lot of discourse lately about just how many film festivals there are nowadays. How do you feel about the landscape of film festivals over the last 10 to 15 years?
It's a difficult question. So
it is.
if you're novice, it's very overwhelming. Like if you're just going into Film Freeway and you're looking, like, how would you know? Like I've been doing it now for like 8 years or something. So like, it's a kind of a bit of a network and who you know. So at a certain point you're like, okay, well, I know the festivals that have been doing it for a really long time and who I can trust. And I also know like the new coming festivals, like if they're being found, like, generally. So it's like, it becomes a little bit easier. I think the biggest part of the landscape that it's like, that's bothersome is not the addition of new festivals. Obviously there's a whole world of like scammer festivals out there. That's like whole cottage industry. You can like look into that. There's plenty of websites that will tell you like what to avoid. Like online awards, I'll just say right now, is like the most blanket one. If it's a film festival that is just like an online awards program, probably avoid it, unless it's like the Blacklist or something like that. But right. I think the biggest issue is sort of like the destruction of like the regional film festival. So I think like when I started, it was like the last few years of like film festivals like Woodstock, or I shouldn't really name festivals in particular, they're all still doing a really good job. It's none of their own fault. It's like the way that the journalism and all these things like focus on festivals. It's like it used to be you could play at a smaller regional film festival but really still make a mark for yourself and do okay distribution. It's becoming harder and harder to do that. And I think a lot of like the maybe this is boring, but the way that like a lot of huge places for film journalism have been bought and acquired by big companies, it's like you're seeing kind of the same focus everywhere. So it's like everything is now being like hyper focused at a few festivals a year, which was always kind of how it was, but now it is like it feels so much more like that. So the saving grace for us again is genre. Like the genre circuit is great, and some of the best newer film festivals that I've been seeing pop up have been genre film festivals that have been like going from like nothing to like pretty reputable in just a handful of years. So I love being in the genre space because I feel like it's a little impervious to some of the change in the industry. But yeah, I would love to see like a focus on regional festivals, which is like to say, if you're out there listening to this and you have like a regional film festival, like if you have like if your city throws a film festival, check it out if you haven't, because like a lot of times they're really amazing. They're some of the best film festivals I've ever been to. The audiences are like wonderful. And if they know there's a hunger, like let's say they're not programming stuff you want, and they're like and you say something, like they will if enough people say something, they'll like hopefully try to take that in consideration. And a lot of festivals, like for instance, I'm guessing a lot of people listen to this like genre too. A lot of festivals have been adding genre programming in the last bunch of years, I think, to help sort of bring younger audiences in. So my that would be like my biggest takeaway is like look for your small festivals that are in your area and like really like go out and support them. A lot of them do year-round programming. It's cool. It's like my mostly my favorite thing to do throughout the years to just go to film festivals. That's where I really like have my like most fun. So,
and with Yellow Veil, is that where most of the discoveries are made lately?
Yeah, I mean it's varied. I mean, it's also like people send, at this point people send stuff early too, so we see a lot of things at different stages. But yeah, I mean, there's many movies that we're not seeing for the first time until we're at a festival, or maybe we saw it and then it worked for us, but then like you see it again at the festival and you get that magic, you get that moment where you see it with the audience and it clicks for you. That's why I'm like a big proponent of still like in-person screenings and everything. Like digital, virtual, it's all great. It's all really like, it's accessible. It helps in a lot of ways, but being able to watch stuff with people is like pretty amazing. And it has changed my opinion on film. Not usually like completely, but like it's definitely pushed a movie that I liked into like loving. So
do you remember one of those that was super transformative for you in theater?
I mean, off the top of my head, I'm probably gonna say no, because I can't actually think of one, but I'll keep it back. If it pops back up, we can get back to
it. With theater stuff, obviously the last couple of years has been perilous and up and down for a lot of people, and there's a lot of doomsdayers out there, but the reality of it is a lot of the magic of the experience with film in general is going to rely on these crazy big screenings. You're going to see it with the best sound possible, best video possible. How do you feel on like a hopeful level for the future of theatrical screenings?
I'm mixed, I would say. I think that the theatrical experience is like never going to possibly fully go away. Like it just won't. But I am scared. We're going to see a consistent, probably like erosion of like the types of films that are allowed to screen theatrically. And it's like, I even see myself doing it too. Like the movies I'm justifying, like, oh, but this one you really need to see in a theater. And like, I kind of do vibe with that attitude. There are movies that I feel like are better theatrical experiences, but everything is better. Like quite almost possibly, with the exception of like, I think, like another partner label, Utopia's We're All Going to the World's Fair, like I think was a pretty uniquely amazing experience on a computer. I'm sure it also is beautiful and wonderful. I didn't actually get to see it. I'm sure it's also beautiful and wonderful in theaters, and I would love a chance. I'm sure I'll see it eventually in theaters. But there are sometimes there are things like pretty unique on a screen, on a smaller screen, when you're like intimate and you're like right up on it and you're like, your face is like right in the screen. But yeah, I think everything benefits from that big audio. But I don't know. I think like things like rep screenings, it's like in New York here where I live, we're still like, you can screen something that screens every single year or twice or 3 times a year. And if it's on print, it's still selling out like a lot of times, or if it's at the right theater, it'll sell out. And I don't think that's going away. It certainly hasn't in all those years, but like, will new releases be able to sustain theatrical? I think the models have to change and like the ways we do things. Like, you expect more like you have one day, one time to see this movie maybe in your city, or you have two chances for some movies because that's all they're going to be able to afford. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Something could change. It'll change that. I guess things always change, but it hasn't really it doesn't seem to be, it's kind of ticking same way down. But I don't know. I'm not like a doomsdayer. I think I'm pretty practical, and like the changes that have to happen to make things like really good are pretty like huge. So like it seems like kind of silly to like hope for those, but I don't know. There's always passionate young people. There's always people trying to figure stuff out. There's always like people, a handful of people getting either A, lucky, or B, just like, sticking around long enough, figuring it out, and like learning how to like make this really broken system work for them.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the broken parts of this is going to be broken for a lot of people for a long time, probably, because it's, well, maybe I should frame it like this. Like, people that are in New York, people that are in California, people like myself that are closer to a bigger city, we got a lot of privilege with these. I mean, there's a lot of people that have zero access to rep screenings at all. And the only thing they have is like a 2-screen theater at most that will show, I mean, real reality of it's like Disney shit, and that's it. And it's so depressing to think about.
I mean, even in New York or even in many cities, like a lot of the art cinemas are playing like essentially like, or art house, or places that were art house cinemas that were only placing like indie stuff are still playing like a handful of like Disney releases or studio releases, or like, you know, A24 or Neon, which are, you know, not necessarily studio, but probably we need to rewrite the language of like what indie versus studio is in 2023. I mean, like, you know, I think it's probably like the biggest difference would be like people who have like output deals for everything and people who don't. Like that's probably the biggest division between distributors is that alone. But yeah, I don't know. There's that but that's a totally fair point. A lot of cities don't even have that, and I think this conversation can feel a little elitist sometimes to those areas where it's like I don't even, you know, I'd have to drive 2 hours to see this movie, and that's fair. That's like, and I don't blame. That's like those people are not part of the problem, unfortunately. I mean, like the theaters that probably closed in those areas, you know, and stuff like that, and all that, and it's like very, very complicated and long. But you know, if there are random cool theaters and like really, really weird places that you just like sometimes don't even realize. So yeah, I mean, I've come across them in traveling across the country. It's like, oh, here's this into one. But even those ones, you know, are you going to see like likely you're going to see like a film from any size of a company like us? Probably not. It's going to be like more the Neons and the A24s, right. Like the bigger indie stuff. But still, those need to be played too. Those need to be like performing and things like that. Like that will trickle down more to us, I think, than like a studio. Like when people are like, "Oh, Oppenheimer and Barbie are making more money. The theatrical experience is back." Like, I think those feel like more exceptions to the rule than something right. like Anatomy of the Fall doing really well or something like that. Like if like an indie, like a true, like you know, definitely like something without like recognizable like superstars for, you know, average America.
I have a feeling we're going to get some more forced marketing that's going to feel like Barbenheimer after that did well. That's not going to be organic, and it's going to feel really gross and contrived.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it started halfway. I mean, it started already so quickly into Barbenheimer, like the false, like it was like a grassroots, like natural thing. So for such a short period of time, and then it was like so manufactured, but it was like during that period of time where the strikes were happening. So it was like they kind of like had this extra time to focus on this weird marketing that they don't normally do. Which is really interesting. I don't know. Watching that whole campaign was very fascinating.
Yeah, the rural area that we were just talking about, one of the best ways that we can fill that in, though, is physical media. And that's where Yellow Veil has the second arm that can come in, help with accessibility for some of these films for people that wouldn't have the chance for rep screenings. And you say you've been a collector for a long time. How'd that start with you? Has that always been there?
Collecting?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose so. I just like, I used to play in punk bands, so it's like records, movies, all this stuff. It's just like second nature to sort of collect. I mean, I've been in like the horror scene for a while. I used to like do little writing and stuff. I wrote for like Diabolique magazine and like edited for that for a minute. So actually, probably that was probably what really like took off, like made my collecting like unhealthy, was like when I was like reviewing stuff. It's like you're watching too much and you're like buying too much, and then you're aware of everything coming out, so then you convince yourself you need some movie you've never seen.
Been there so many times
because it was really okay, or even worse, a movie you don't like and you don't like, but it's a cool release or something. And I've been there both ways, but I've like shed that a little bit. I now I'm like a selective buyer. But no, I still collect. I very much enjoy owning something, and also like, frankly, like it just is the best way it looks. Like it's, you know, streaming doesn't really look that good. So
I would agree there. What are some of the bigger releases that you've enjoyed getting on physical over the last year or two?
Oh wow, sorry, you caught me off guard. I think, I mean, I could say more probably. Like, I think the most exciting label for me, and the one I've consistently bought the most from, is like Connie, is the
Nice
label. I think they're doing truly amazing work and have the most definable brand in terms of like, exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it, and I just really, really love them. And I just saw their new restoration of Spacked Out, which has been selling out like tons of screenings here in New York, and amazing. And so that one I will be getting, and I've gotten a bunch of their releases in the past. So that's my biggest shout out for, and biggest kind of like collector mentality. And there's a couple that I've missed a slipcase here and there on them, and bums me out. But I've learned to let that stuff go, which is kind of nice. Took a while.
Connie is cool because the two of them are just the sweetest people in the world, and so supporting them, it just feels so good to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love them both. They're good friends of ours, and kind of like, have been through it with us for a while. Like we've known both. We've been friends as companies for a really long time, even before Connie existed and stuff. So yeah, just nothing but love.
With the physical media, you put out, I mean, so many ridiculously good titles. One I really want to give a shout out though, and I'm totally fine if you've probably not heard of this, but I run an award show every year called the Shelf Shock Rewind Awards, and We Kill for Love was just nominated for the best documentary release for this year. We Kill for Love, how'd you come across that?
Actually, that one was nice. Justin, OCN Justin, the Vinegar Syndrome Justin, the Liberty, had actually reached out to us because it came over to him first, and he was like, I watched it and I really think it, like, he's like I think it's like good for like, a full release, and I think you guys would really like it. Like, can I send it? So we watched it, and like, honestly, it's like right up my alley, and like loved it right away. So Anthony is like, the director Anthony is just really amazing, and like, honestly, like the amount of work he put into this is so impressive. I mean, he to upscaling himself many of the footage because he's had to source it from so many different types of sources. Learning how to just like get some beta tape to like 4K or something. So really just a fun experience. And I'd always been obsessed with that, with the, sort of the idea that, because I'd heard that sort of feminist theory that the shot on video, or the straight to video, not shot on video, but the straight to video erotic thrillers were actually like included more female agency, and were like, let's not say less sexist than their theatrical counterparts, but at least were like more interested in sort of like the female agency aspect of the equation. So I've always kind of interested in that. So to see a documentary form not only around that, but also the history, and just balance those really well, I thought was really great. I mean, I think it's akin to something like Kayla's Woodlands Dark and
yes.
So I think like, in terms of really taking something exhausting and trying to narrow it down. But it's a challenge, it's like a 3-hour documentary, and talk about theatrical experience, trying, we got it a few times theatrically, but we did Overlook Film Festival. We had a screening at Vidiot's, which was really special to show a movie that is so obsessed with like video culture. To have it in a video rental store was really, really nice for us. But yeah, very long runtime, very hard to get screens for that long, but one we're very proud of. That's been a great seller for us. I think it's almost completely sold out. There's like less than 100 copies of the standard edition left. The limited edition sold out very quickly, so it's been cool.
With the channel, I've got a little Discord that I run for everybody just to talk about releases and stuff like that. Not every release permeates into something that gets discussed for a long period of time. There's so many titles coming out. We Kill for Love, though, man. This one is like, it seems like every week there's somebody that went, okay, I finally watched this. We need to talk about this more because this thing is incredible. I've got a couple friends that, like, I've got one that collects Laserdiscs out of New York that has loved most of these titles most of his life. And the moment it arrived at his house, it was like, I have to watch it right this moment. Loved it. And then has like made a list of titles he's got to find that he's hoping people put out. This is the kind of thing that is like genuine film encyclopedia documentary. And for anybody that has not seen it yet, it is an absolute must-own if you're a fan of anything 90s, anything erotic thrillers, anything neo-noir, anything modern, like even genre adjacent. It is so damn good, and I'm so grateful you guys put this thing out.
Wow, thank you. That's really sweet.
It permeated a lot, and funny enough, there was one other title that almost got another Shelf Shock nomination, and that's Once Upon a Time in Uganda. That release, I mean, I loved the original story behind Who Killed or Captain Alex and Wakaliwood and all that. The documentary for that, where'd that come from for you guys?
Yeah, it's a very faded doc. I think they had some like late production. It was originally slated to play South by Southwest the year that South by Southwest was canceled. All these things, and then it came around. It had this thing where it was like, and this is before we're on it, and then it was being sold by Blue Finch, which is a sales agent we're friends with from the UK. Very, very great company, and they reached out to us about it, and for us it's like a no-brainer. Absolutely, I think the scene in it that most to me is like absolutely like writes at home is like when he's making the makeshift projector, if you remember that, for all the kids, and he's showing them how film is projected and all this stuff, and it's like, to me, that's the movie. It's a movie about like what loving movies can do to a community and how it can bring a community together. And I think that's like the heart and soul of it, and the fact that they make weird fucked up little genre movies even better. So yeah, I really love Once Upon a Time in Uganda. I think the Walk Hollywood team is really doing something really fascinating. I can't wait to see more movies come out. Hopefully they do. I know they have. I know there's at least one more in the works, but we'll see when it comes out. But
funny enough, you bring up the projector scene. I brought this over again. I used to have this on my table for all these interviews, but I built this a few years ago and had a similar moment with my kids. Because this thing actually has film and has a little battery and will display, like, I think it's a guy running or something like that. That's super cheap. It's just a little wooden puzzle. But just having them, because my kids at the time when I built it, I think they were 4 and 6, and having them go, wait a minute, you're just twisting that and it's able to show all that, and they like had that light bulb moment of, wow, that's really cool, and they could touch it and do it themselves. I loved having that moment with them. It was so much fun.
Yeah, there's something pretty transfixing about it, even as an adult, like, seeing it going old Nickelodeons or like the spinning, the magic, I don't know what they're called, but yeah.
Especially for many of us, like, I never had a chance to be somebody that was a projector, somebody running a projector. I don't even think we have no more film theaters in Kansas City left, I don't think. I think the last one closed just a few years ago. So we're at the point where I can't even have that be a part of my kids to understand what that's from. And yeah, love being able to show at least a little physical part of that. Big one for us in my friend group, Faults. Riley and his entire filmography has been something that I feel like many of us have been close to Riley's age and interests and just kind of grown up with him. Faults, just curious if that was, important for Yellow Veil or how that came to be a part of the catalog.
Yeah. We had met Riley just, at festivals and stuff. So that was like someone we knew, and Justin in particular loves Faults. And like, I think it was just kind of like when we're early on, we're like, okay, we're going to have a number of movies that we're releasing. So we'll have so-and-so, let's say our first year, 4, 5, maybe 6 of our own titles. So like we maybe need to build like 5 or 6 titles outside of that. So we kind of just did like a 20 of our like films that we really want. And Faults was always on that list. So I think it was like one from the early stage. And, again, it's like, it's interesting when you're doing something for just Blu-ray, because like some of the questions of like, does this totally fit like your brand? 'Cause I think it does totally fit our brand, but obviously it would be one of the ones that people might say is an outlier because it's principally like kind of a comedy. It's a bit of a thriller, maybe, but like, I don't know. I think to me, it's like, it's just as fitting as everything else. There's no horror about it. Like maybe that's the one thing, but now at this point we've done enough movies that aren't horror that I think we can finally, obviously everything's not going to be horror, but a lot of it is. But yeah, I don't know. I think Faults and Riley in particular is just like, it's such a special movie, and I love first features too. So that's another thing is like, you'll probably notice we do a lot of first features. because we're very excited about first time filmmakers. I love to see faults and all. I love to see everything just kind of like, it's like one of the only times that very rarely someone has like the opportunity to just kind of do whatever they want, because like there's usually not enough money or not enough people telling them. That might be changing a little bit, but you know, it's still often the case. It's like that first movie, they get kind of free reign. The second one, they're getting reined in a bit more. But I love first features.
Yeah, Riley's an incredibly talented person. I don't have it in front of me right now, but the last one that probably I kind of want to give a big heads up to anybody that's not checked it out is you have a Gaspar Noé title on the label. That's a big deal. Obviously he's gotten a bit bigger, a little bit more recognition over the last few years. God, there's so much great things about that release. One of the things I really want to highlight, the special features on that disc are incredible. I think you guys delivered literally maybe your best package on that disc. It's astonishing. But just to have a Gaspar title in the catalog, how's that feel?
Yeah, it was great, honestly. And that's when we have full rights on. Like we're like the full distributor of it. We did theatrical. You know, it's we sold to Shudder. It was great. We all saw that movie at the world premiere actually.
Wow.
And loved it. And we're like, but at the time we didn't do distribution, so it was just like we just saw it for fun. And it was like terrible. It was raining. It was midnight. Everyone was tired. But once it started, it was just like, holy shit.
That's a wake up movie.
Yeah. You feel high after you see it. Yeah. It's like 5 minutes of strobing. Nothing makes sense. But then we just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Okay, that's cool, but there's nothing we can do for it. Wild Bunch is the sales agent for it. Now Goodfellas, you know, massive European company. Like, you know, he doesn't need a sales agent. And then when time came around to do distribution, like again, like this list of like what hasn't sold also for the last few years, and Lux was probably our number one, and we just, you know, we made it happen. It took a while, but it was like once it happened, it was great. Working with Gaspar was fantastic. He's very, very smart. He's very funny. He's very charming. He's actually, you know, quite easy to work with. I think a lot of artists get, you know, sort of maybe reps for being like difficult, and he never was. He was, you know, if he had a problem with anything, it was always totally understandable and very easy to work through. So yeah, it was a really, really great experience for like a young distribution company, and definitely put us on the map. And yeah, I mean, part of it was by design. Arrow beat us to the chase a little bit on Lux Eterna, so we kind of knew we were going to go after them. So we had to have like a really, really solid package, because like for Gaspar, people are going to import it. So there's that. But it was also because the movie is so influenced by, and obviously one of the reasons I think that package is so good is because the whole second disc of just short films by experimental filmmakers. That was amazing. To me, that's also stuff that I'm really excited to do, is like something that's a little different. And I think like presenting like a package of like really cool sort of outsider like experimental films for people to like maybe explore for the first time. Maybe they bought it because they want to get those more than Lux. Like, you know, there's a number of reasons why someone might explore that disc, but all those movies were just movies that were in the DNA and were movies that, you know, Gaspar was referencing. So I think it's a really unique opportunity to do that. Obviously, it's kind of expensive to license short films, or sometimes it's not, but a lot of times it is. So it's something that I would love to be able to explore more and more, but it's just not always budget friendly. But
yeah, that's a big deal on some of these releases. And so when we get a package like this, it's always let's say, it's always a little disheartening when somebody can complain about one disc being bare bones, or, you know, maybe not as many special features as they want. But then if you pay attention, a couple months ago, they just put out Lux, and it has the second disc, and each of those, you know, I don't know your budgets, but each of those shorts could have cost an extra couple $1,000s. And that's, for a small company, that's a lot of money to invest in one title, especially.
Yeah, it was an expensive release, and they're all, and honestly, I get it. Like, Blu-rays are expensive, and like you want to bet $3, like, so. But yeah, it's like, it's just frankly like, I don't really like actually read very many. I should read more reviews, but I like don't read some of the reviews so much anymore. Probably just because like I do like take everything personally, so just save myself like like worrying about it. But like honestly, like I will say, like we always do our best, like, you know, believe it or not, but like we're like, I as a collector myself, like I look at every release and I think like, would I be happy with this or would I not?
Right.
You know, on some things, maybe and then some of our releases, I'd be fucking ecstatic, and some of them I'd be like, yeah, maybe a little bit less happy on this one, but it is what it is. And like I think the movies are always at least worth it. And I think that's like a decision everyone has to make, right?
Yeah, it's a yeah. I mean, you're budgeting for certain things. If you're going to buy it, you're going to like it. The feature should be the biggest draw, anyways.
Yeah.
Riddle of Fire. This is one that's been making a lot of headlines over the last 6 or 7 months or so. What is that, and when can we have some more people see it?
It's Riddle of Fire is so cool. So we saw Riddle of Fire at Cannes Directors Fortnight, where it world premiered. It's like a 70s Disney live action movie, you know, like meshed with like Goonies, in that it's like kids in peril, but it's got like sort of like almost weird D&D logic. Like they're on a quest. Basically, they're on a quest to get a pie for their sick mom, because they want to play video games, and that's the only way she'll let them. And in that course, they get sort of entangled with like a woodland, like a modern, like kind of like wooded witch, like not like sort of like a fire brimstone witch, but like sort of like more of like a new agey witch. And you know, the setting is beautiful. It's shot beautifully on 16 millimeter. The kids are incredible. I really think it's a chance for people with we got it rated. Actually, we've never gotten a movie rated. It's a process, a lot of, but it's PG-13, so technically 13-year-olds can come. I think it's like we've shared it though. Like Justin has got kids. Some festival programs have kids. We shared it with like people as like young as like 7. Even like some of the younger ones really get it. Like I think kids with like young personalities. But it's like great. It's really an adult film. But I think it's beautiful because it's like we never had a movie that I feel like someone could take their sort of like slightly older child to and get this experience of like having this weird nostalgia that is also isn't totally just nostalgia. Like there is a modern aspect to it. So yeah, and it's filled with like dungeon synth score,
Nice.
Old Dwellers in it, RuneScape. So it's like I just said the second one wrong, but it's like kind of like all of these different aspects of like sort of tangential but also very different filmifera and like fairy tale like launched together. I really, really love it. We're going to be theatrically releasing it in March, or in spring, and following that it'll be on everything. I think it'll like Blu-ray will probably be realistically like summer.
Nice.
In that one, we are co-releasing with Vinegar Syndrome, so actually, like the Blu-ray will come out like via Vinegar Syndrome, through their thing. So actually, it should be like a really like crazy like big release because we'll have a little bit bigger budget behind this release since they're coming in on it. But yeah, it should be really cool. I think it's a no-brainer for people. I think it's really charming. And yeah, keep an eye out for more information. There's a poster out there. There's a little teaser that was cut before we got on, but we have like a new trailer and everything coming out soon.
It looks incredible, and I'm glad the press seemed to do pretty well for it. I feel like more people shared that story around than quite a few others that would have been like this. I feel like people are kind of hungry for this movie.
I think it's good. I mean, knock on wood, I think it's going to do really well. I hope it does. It's such a cool movie. Again, it's a first feature, but just like one with like just total imagination and total style,
and shot on 16. Like that's a pretty unique thing nowadays.
Yeah, it's it's hard, but it's like when you see it, you're like you can tell it's not only is it shot on 16 millimeter, it's like every house is like the perfect house, because
Nice.
it gives you that sense of like feeling like you're in a fairy tale. So when you see like someone's cottage, it's like a photo beautiful cottage. It's like A-frame in the middle of the woods. Like everything is like, it's just really meticulously crafted.
It is currently January, and the newest title that was just announced for Blu-ray from Yellow Veil is Dogs Don't Wear Pants. And I saw this one just a few years ago, got it from Anti-Worlds in the UK, put this out.
Yeah.
Not many people even know about that label. It has probably not sold many copies in the US. So glad other people get to see this. Can you tell everybody about this film and why they should make this a purchase?
Yeah, I mean, I love Dogs Don't Wear Pants. I can't remember how the first time I saw it, but it actually might have been, I might have missed it on the festival circuit. It might have just been the first time I saw it was just on Shudder, and I loved it. I mean, first off, like the visual aesthetic is absolutely stunning. If you fetishize like deep dark reds, like I do, like neon red,
who doesn't? Yeah.
and just leather and shininess and dark blues and all this stuff, and it's just like, you know, for a movie about fetish, it also has this very, very awesome like aesthetic that just kind of like vibes with that. But actually, you know, buried in all of that, and of course, I do love a movie that at least tries to tackle BDSM, and you know, I think sort of like you know, sex fetishes from a, you know, rather positive angle. Like I think we can argue that the movie, you know, whether it does it exactly perfect, you know, that's up. But I like that too. I like that there's a conversation to be had, and it's been had, and it's constantly being had around the movie, and I think that's really exciting. But deep down, it's a really interesting love movie, like love story, and I'm a little obsessed with movies that I would kind of call toxic romance films, like Possession or Phantom Thread, or something where actually like what is at the core of the relationship is actually quite maybe like horrifying, but somehow it actually brings two people closer together. And I think like Dogs Don't Wear Pants fits in that brilliantly. I think in a weird way, like Lose is that kind of movie too. Yeah. There are a lot of these movies I'm really attracted to that, in that kind of cinema. So that was one that we talked to Shudder for a while, and we just eventually got an agreement with Shudder to do. Also, I'm a huge fan of Anti-Worlds. Andy Stark, who is one of the co-runners, is like an incredible producer behind like a bunch of the best movies coming out of the UK, Earwig in particular, quite recently. So yeah, I was really excited they did it. And like, honestly, it's like, it was kind of like, you know, it was a conversation because we had to say like, is there a reason to have like another English language Blu-ray out there, or is there going to be enough attention? But ultimately we decided, I think like probably that one was one that like people, like a ton of people did import. So we thought there'd be enough, and yeah, it was really, really exciting, and I'm happy it's selling pretty well. So.
And then other than that, really the only other one to call attention to for me right now is you just put out a title with Maya Hawke, who's gotten pretty big over the last couple of years, and glad this one is getting a release that people will pay attention to. Lady World. This is a subversive film, to say the least. Can you tell people about Lady World?
Absolutely. Lady World, like without a doubt, one of the things I'm most proud of last year was sneaking Lady World out in line of the year. Amanda Kramer directed Lady World, her first feature. Again, first features. Amanda is insane in the best way. I love her. I think she is a true artist. I think she is uncompromising in every way. I think she makes the most exciting films. Lady World is like the pitch that most people have you know, gravitated around. So I'll just continue with it. Is it's basically Lord of the Flies, but with teenage girls set in a house that may or may not have the apocalypse happening outside. You don't really know, but they certainly think there is. So it is cluttered. Every frame has like, so many of the frames have like all of the women inside of it, if not half of them. It is loud. It is boisterous. I think it feels like what it probably would feel like if you were living in a house with that many teenage women taking care of themselves. And it was one that we almost sold in the beginning. Like we were very close on it. We talked to Amanda. A slightly bigger company had an offer into, and we kind of like, you know, backed off, and like it was our first film, and like, hey, like it was our first year too. It was like we were only a couple months in, so we're like, why don't you go with the bigger company? If it doesn't work out with you, like we'll come back. And like we've just always stayed in touch with Amanda. We're selling her new movie, So Unreal. We you know, so it's like when we're coming back to talk about So Unreal too, you know, we're basically able to get Lady World. Lady World was it had another distributor for a few years, but we were able to acquire the rights when that contract expired. So yeah, it was important to us to re-release it. It's got new artwork. It's actually remastered and recolor graded. So
interesting.
It looks. We haven't made a huge deal out of it because obviously it's like, you know, doesn't, in the collector's market, usually remastering the grade, all that is like thought of for more for film. But the editor, you know, was, you know, he wanted to just kind of make it look a little better. So they spent a good time making it look better. So yeah, it's nice. It's definitely an improved edition with sort of art the filmmakers are really happy with, and yeah, Maya's in that. Maya gives a really, really great performance, but really everyone gives such a good performance in it.
Before I ask just a couple broad questions, is there a title from the physical catalog that you feel like has been underappreciated, one that deserves an extra shining of light onto?
I mean, I guess I would probably say we've mentioned so many of them, actually, a large majority. So one that we haven't mentioned would be Maddie Doe's The Long Walk. I mean, The Long Walk is one that when we talk about like genre on art house, there you go. And I love that cover so much. Like,
it's really great.
Maddie, this is like another movie that's like we tracked for so long, and it was wonderful to finally distribute it. It was sad that like the movie stayed undistributed for like 2 years, but it was ready for us when we launched, and it was like one of the first titles we acquired. I love Maddie. I think she's absolutely brilliant. All of her movies are really fantastic, this one being no exception. And I think it is like such a human and stunning looking, and for almost no money. I mean, they have very, very little money, and it looks so good. And it's just like a time travel-y. It's not really, it's like a mixture of all these genres that it isn't in a weird way. It's like, not to be spoilery, but it's like all these things that it touches on, it kind of isn't, but that's what makes it great. Like, it's one part kind of a ghost movie. It's also one part kind of sci-fi. It's also kind of this murder mystery, but it isn't really totally any of those things. So that's definitely one that I would just say is like, I think really, really special. I think it was really great and just an honor to work with Larry on Jack Fesseden's, on his son Jack's film, Foxhole, just because, and especially because like Larry is one of my heroes, and like working with Larry now for so long has been an absolute treasure of mine. But the thing that I find right now most beautiful about Larry is just how much he's invested in his son too, and how much he really just believes in his son. And for a while I'm just talking with Larry, and he's just like, he's like, I really want to get a Blu-ray of Jack's movie out. I really want to get a Blu-ray of Jack's movie out. Eventually I was like, Larry, I think that can happen. Like, getting the distributors, we just had to figure that out, but that was really easy. Everyone was really happy to do it. It just like hadn't got done. So I was able to do it, and it really just made him happy. And I know that one's a little bit harder too, because it's like a war movie. It's a triptych. It's three stories. So it's not exactly like one people look at and go, oh, I got to buy it. But again, it's not a first feature. But in terms of like a young filmmaker, like just really going off and doing something on his own for no money, like I think Foxhole's really cool. And talk about like stacked with features. I mean, they have like an hour and a half long documentary on there, like short films. There's like a lot of stuff. So to me, like that's special for me. That's like a personal, like a happy moment, because part of me also like the industry is what it is, but like part of why I like it and being in the independent sphere is like you get to work with people you like. You get to work with people that you actually like form relationships. Some of the Adams now we've done 2 movies with. We're close with them. It's like amazing seeing families in this industry work together. So
the slip art on Foxhole is one that is entrancing. Something about the coloring on that, it is such like a perfect vibe to get you entranced with that movie. I love it.
Yeah, I was really happy with the art.
And you're doing one of Larry's films now too on the other side, right?
Yeah, we sold Blackout, or we're selling, actively, which is Larry's latest film. Almost a vampire film. It's his werewolf film, and it's a sequel to Habit. So it'll and Depraved. So
interesting. I didn't realize it was a sequel. Larry's somebody that I've appreciated for years. His stuff is so unique and just has that very Larry feeling about them.
Absolutely. I mean, Larry is like the blueprint for the current like independent, like the current like art genre. Like I think like he is really that heart and soul. Not only did he launch a lot of those big guys, but like really like the films he's making, like the interest in like a socio-political angle through truly like American independent cinema that really looks on its surface more like American independent drama than it does like B movies, even though like Larry's obviously obsessed with like the universal horror monsters, but he just filters them through like this really amazing, like very Sundancey feel, which is funny because his films have never played Sundance. See, which he says, you've probably seen it in an interview, but
yeah. One thing I got to find out, the future of Yellow Veil. What do we have coming? I'm sure you can't say any titles, but are you still going to be super active over the coming year? I know that you guys are working your ass off, it seems like, but yeah.
I mean, every year has been bigger than the last. I think we've hit a plateau of growth where we have to probably stay the same size, but that's fine. That's like we don't need to grow much more, I don't think. But yeah, no, we'll be very active. I mean, we'll look to, especially on the distribution side, we'll probably be more active. So I think like the goal is one release a month Blu-ray. If not more, if we're able to squeeze in like a 2-month thing every once in a while, which occasionally we can do, but not very often. So yeah, and like some bigger releases, some different releases. Like I said, Riddle of Fire, and a movie, The Other Lawrence, which we didn't mention, is a Belgian film that was in Director's Fortnight, and it's kind of like a weird existential stoner comedy, like, a bit tangential to like a Big Lebowski, but like a Belgian Big Lebowski.
Nice.
Stunningly shot, again, too, just like really crisp colors, like a real like saturated feel to it. I loved it. It was a movie where it was the first shot of the film, like I knew I was gonna love it. Like that happens every once in a while where like something is composed in a certain way where I'm pretty sure I'm gonna love this movie, and I did. It's really, really funny. So that was at Fantastic Fest. It's gonna play a few more festivals, and we'll put it out next year.
Nice.
I'm sorry, this year. Sorry, it's January now.
It's always that weird transition. So
we're not even lying. This isn't even like podcasting where we're like banking it.
One thing, especially with your films that are, the Polish films or some of the others that were actually shot on film, I'm sure a lot of people have been asking this, and I got to hear what you guys think about the cost associated with this. But I'm sure you hear about UHD all the time. Is there UHD in the future for Yellow Veil? Obviously, that's a giant step up. What do you think?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, the costs are coming down a bit, but right now it's been prohibitive for us for sure. We looked into it, I think, and it's also like sometimes, you don't always have 4K. You don't always have 4K
right.
master. So if you don't have a 4K master, then yeah, the costs are going to be more. But the authoring alone is actually quite expensive. So it will happen. I don't know if it's going to happen like this year. But like if it could, cool. But like eventually, like that's the future enough. I mean, I don't know if it seems that Blu-ray never sold as much as DVD. I doubt UHD is going to ever sell as much as even Blu-ray, but maybe we'll see. Who knows? I don't know these numbers actually. Maybe I'm wrong already. But it doesn't seem like that's the truth. But yeah, so I think we would do UHD, but it's probably going to be like select, unless it just hits the point where like that's just the industry, and then I'm sure we'll adapt with the industry and we'll just be all UHD too, and that will be great. I have a 4K player. I would love to only use my 4K player as well, but
if I'm remembering right, there's still like for every disc that you sell that's UHD, you have to pay a licensing fee still, right?
You have to for everything,
right?
For Blu-ray too, yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
it's so expensive for some of these releases, and then everybody like some small film will get announced, and everybody like, well, it's a 4K master. How come it's not a UHD? Well, I mean that for some labels, that's another $35,000 depending on what they needed.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's everything costs a lot of money. Nothing. It's like like things have gotten cheaper, and there are some things, and like certainly like certain things like I think COVID's opened up possibilities of like doing more virtual interviews and stuff like that, and things like that. So there are some things that have gone down in price. I guess it's like you don't have to hire maybe a cameraman in Poland to go
travel the world,
someone. Or not include them because you can't afford to do that,
right?
Vice versa. So that's opened up some things. But yeah, like I can't author. I'm not a tech guy. I'm enough to like author my own stuff. Nor necessarily probably should I. Like we want a professional doing it too. So, yeah. But it's it is what it is. I hope that as that comes more just common ground, that it becomes doable for smaller movies too. But I assume that's not anytime soon, and maybe it will never sell enough to ever be that way, but we'll see.
Well, I think that's probably a good hopeful note to end this on. For anybody that's never checked out Yellow Veil, highly recommend literally any title in the catalog. There's not really a dud in this entire landscape. I think there's not always a label that I can say there's something here for everybody, but with Yellow Veil, I genuinely kind of think there is something for everybody. It's such a wide spectrum of genres and feelings that you get through these films that it's really easy to say, read all the synopses, you'll probably find something that sounds great to you, and check it out.
I think so. I mean, there's like, if you love, like, there's a couple of things that I think we don't cater to, but we cater to a lot. And thank you. I should say the one movie I didn't mention, I'll just say it really quickly, which we released theatrically just a little bit ago in September, is Rebel, which we'll have coming out early next year too. And Rebel, I like really love, and it's like a deal and Bilal. They've done huge movies: Bad Boys 3, Bad Boys 4, the whole Miss Marvel series. But this is kind of like their very personal, part musical, part war, part drama, part thriller. You know, insanely hybrid, like everything we've done, but really a remarkable movie about sort of the experience of, you know, what it felt like as for them to live in Belgium, like in 2014, as sort of like the crisis in Syria is really kicking off, and there's like a lot of young men leaving Belgium and actually going to Syria, and you know, and that's kind of what the film centers itself around. So it's really incredible movie, and I think it's going to look wonderful on Blu-ray. And I think it is one that if you're willing to like give something a chance, like, and like you want to take a shot on something, like, this is a cool one. This one won't let down.
That sounds harrowing. Nice. Definitely going on the list immediately. Yeah, I'll have all the links for Yellow Veil stuff down below. Please check them out. Please follow them everywhere. Joe, thank you so much for the time. I know this has been hard to get something scheduled, and you guys are obviously super busy, but genuinely, just thank you.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate you keeping on it.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Disconnected Podcast. There's one big thing that you could do to help the show, and that is to leave a rating and review on the podcast service of your choice. Thank you.
Hello!
This is Matt.
And Emily from Scarecrow Video in Seattle, Washington. Did you know that we have the largest video collection in the world? We have over 146,000 titles and growing. That's over 3 times more than Netflix, Amazon, Max, and Hulu combined.
Plus, Scarecrow now offers rent-by-mail service throughout the U.S., so check out scarecrowvideo.org for details. You can catch Emily and I, or Matt and I, if that was going to be you saying that, on our bi-weekly YouTube show, Viva Physical Media, for video recommendations and so much more.
See ya!
Bye!